Welcome to the Midweek Cycling Club B-Grade Crit from August 8th, 2017. It was a great night for racing, so I'm going to go through some highlights from the race, talk about some tactics and strategy, but first, let's do a lap of the course. So we're just heading into turn 1, which is a plain old 90-degree corner. However, the race tends to bind up here slightly, especially towards the end of the race. That's because as you round the corner, the course will narrow just slightly. There's some sketchy pavement on the right-hand side, so riders who pass over it tend to stop pedaling. That means if you're on the front, you can lay down a nice strong attack and gain some distance on the bunch heading into turn 2, which is coming up just around this nice sweeping descent. So here comes turn 2 of 2, aka the fast corner. Now this corner has a well-earned reputation for being pretty sketchy. That's because in the B-grade race, riders tend to take all kinds of errant lines, and the speeds get so high that some get so scared that they brake in the corner. Now thankfully there are marshals who ride within the race, and you'll see one on your right hand side in the yellow penny. The job of the marshals is to look out for riding like this, correct it, and make the race safer for everyone. Now this backstretch is where the race really comes alive. That's because it's the longest uninterrupted section of the course. It's not out of the ordinary to hit speeds well over 60k an hour here. However, that fun doesn't last for very long, because once you get around this nice sweeping curve, the grade pitches up a little bit as you head towards the start-finish line. Later on, I'll talk a little bit more about this last 100 meters, but for now, that's the course. Tonight, I just didn't have the legs to really be in this race, and instead of just sitting in and doing nothing, I gave myself a little bit of homework, and that homework was to learn and ride the flow of this course. Flow riding has to be the most underemphasized crit skill, because it really goes against the whole move up, move up, move up ethos and tactics that we learn when we first start racing crits. So instead of being overly active in the race, flow riding is all about learning the course and figuring out how it affects overall rider behavior, and then applying that knowledge to conserve energy and grab spots. Those who know liken this to driving on the highway without touching your brakes, but in racing terms, just think of this as intelligent tailgunning. Here's a quick demo of what I mean. If you look ahead, you can see that I'm way back on this race, but I'm not panicking, because I know two things. First of all, around this curve, the grade is going to pitch up a little bit, and second, the wind is coming across us from roughly those trees there, so that when we get to about here, the race is going to bunch up and I can reintegrate. And there we go. That's flow riding in a nutshell. Since we're coming up on a new lap, let's do a complete flow ride of this course. Now I'm staying on the left-hand side even though the wind is coming directly at me, because as I mentioned, on turn 1, there's some sketchy pavement on the right-hand side, so by staying left, I can avoid getting caught up in that traffic. And if you look to the right, riders on that side are dropping back a little bit because they've lost momentum. Unfortunately, I've picked up this really strong but undisciplined wheel going into turn 2. Now I don't want that, so I'm going to back off a little bit and let this NCCH rider pick it up. My reasoning behind that is that I've noticed about 5 or 6 pristine bib numbers out there. Now that tells me that these are brand new riders who have never raced on this course before, so I want to see what kind of lines people are taking going through this corner. They all look pretty good to me. There are a couple sketchy ones out there, but that's okay, nothing I can't deal with. Now it's evident that 504 is getting ready to surf a wheel. Now under usual circumstances, I'd go with it, but I know that that wind is coming up around this curve, so this is a dead move. But if they're dead, I'm dead too, so I need to find some shelter, and that means hanging back a little bit and moving into the right. But in doing so, I make an absolutely horrific error in judgment. So I'm back on 417, which is the wheel that I gave up going into turn 2. Now I get a little gun shy and back off a little bit, so the rider next to me comes in and jumps on it. Now, I know that this rider isn't strong and takes really bad lines through corners. This is maybe their 3rd or 4th race. So we're heading into turn 1 and I know he's going to blow it. Now watch closely. Right at the apex, he's going to stop pedaling and hit the brakes. That's a 2-bike gap that he let up. I have to get off of this wheel. Now realistically, tailgunning a B-grade race doesn't give you much choice when it comes to wheels. However, when you're flow riding, it's important to stay off these really shaky wheels, otherwise you're going to sap up way too much energy. But anyways, let's get back to the course. So the pace is dropping off as we're setting up for turn 2. Now turn 2 is kind of tricky because it gives you options. You can stay to the inside, which is quicker and closer to the race line and gives you a lot more shelter, or you can go to the outside, which is longer, but if anything goes amiss in the corner, you can easily maneuver your way around it. Now I've chosen to stay on the inside because really, I want that shelter. But let's say that for whatever reason I had to take that slower outside line. In these circumstances, that's okay, because we know that once the front hits that wind around the curve, everything is going to bunch up. Now let's say we had a tailwind here, completely different circumstances. We would have to fight for that inside line. Otherwise, if we take that outside line, the front of the race is going to drop us and we're working too hard, and that's not what we want when we're flow riding. Okay, so for tonight at least, that's the gist of how this particular bunch is riding this specific course. And as long as the direction or the intensity of the wind doesn't change too much and the activity level of the bunch remains more or less the same, we can sit pretty for most of this race and count on that flow. As far as your own racing goes, these same general principles can be applied to any course or any group of riders. So the next time you're in a crit, instead of being really active, just sit back and try to watch for these patterns. So halfway through this race, it became clear that I had to get a lot more active, both mentally and physically, than I really wanted to be. Those noob riders that I mentioned earlier, they were taking a lot of very foolish risks and just riding way too loose for a crit, especially on a very short, albeit not entirely technical course like this one. Let me skip forward a bit and give you an example of what I mean. Right now I'm sitting on my teammate Jason's wheel. So I really like being on his wheel because I know that he's powerful and predictable, and this season we've made a lot of really strong moves together. It also doesn't hurt that he's nearly a foot taller than me, so I can save a lot of energy just by sticking to him. However, one of our teammates ends up nudging me off of his wheel. Watching the video closely, I can assure you that this wasn't at all intentional, and he was just reacting to a super sketchy rider on his left. Nevertheless, that ends up slotting me next to this rider in the red jersey, who's kind of weaving side to side as you can see, and just riding way too loose for this course, especially this section. Now I don't want him anywhere near me going into turn 2, so I let this gap open up. Turns out those were the least of my worries. First, this guy comes up on the inside. Now this guy makes a habit of that, because as you can see, he's a lanky climber, and climbers tend to lack the power to punch out of corners. So I jump on the guy in the purple jersey, and I have no idea what he's doing. He's just all over this course. Actually, this is the guy who pushed Ed into me earlier. This kind of nonsense just carried on every single lap, and it was pretty clear that this race was going to end up in a crash, which it did, because even the more experienced riders were getting frustrated. I just gotta say one thing, chapeau to the marshals, because you guys had your work cut out for you tonight. Anyways, such are the hazards of racing at this level. And on that note, let's talk about moving around on this course. Short courses like this one are all about defending your position. These courses will mercilessly punish you for conceding wheels and inactive riding, especially this one. That's because short courses have such short straights, so everyone gets the idea of moving up through them. And if everyone is moving up, really, no one is moving up. So if you want to stay near the front, you need to jealously guard your position. That means moving into every gap that becomes available, avoiding undisciplined and weak wheels like the Plague, and sticking to active, competent riders like Glue, especially going into and out of corners. Of course, that's easier said than done, especially on this course, which is actually a lot more challenging than it appears. If you look at the course plot in the top right of the window, you'll see that while there's only 2 corners, there aren't any proper straights. This means that if you aren't cornering, you're moving through a gentle curve. Now taking the race line straightens them out a bit, but still, the bunch is actually weaving in and out around most of this course. Because of that, moving up by filtering through gaps in the wheels isn't such a safe idea, because if you overlap a wheel for even a split second, the course might just guide that rider right into your wheel. This is how I've gone down this course, and I've seen it happen plenty of times. I'm not saying that you can't do it, and you shouldn't do it, but in my view, the risk isn't worth the 2 or 3 spots that you might grab. So I know what you're thinking. Okay guy, since you won't let us filter up through the wheels, does that mean we need to eat wind and just go around everyone? Yeah, that's pretty much the case. But here's how you can move up without having to work way too hard. Because this course is so short, there's really only 3 spots where you can move up. Just after turn 1, the 20 meters or so right before turn 2, and almost that entire back stretch connecting turn 2 to turn 1. Right now I'm going around the bunch to that spot right after turn 1. Now the window of opportunity to move up here can be relatively short, and it isn't open every lap, but you can grab about 10 or so spots here without putting in a big dig. Even more if someone decides to attack and you're lucky enough to snag their wheel. Now there's a lot going on in that spot, so let's just jump back and do that again. There are a few factors here that make this a good spot to move up. I've already mentioned the broken pavement, but this is also where riders taking a free lap are allowed to rejoin the pack, and this tends to cause some confusion that you can capitalize on. Just watch for those riders if you're moving up from way back. However, the biggest factor here is that the bunch gets really sleepy right in this spot. A lot of riders use this entire stretch to get themselves psyched up for turn 2, so they just sit up right after that first driveway on the right, and the pace drops off accordingly. Things get even slower the closer you get to turn 2, and huge gaps open up in that little descent. So if you're already going over the top, just keep going, because you're likely to find a gap that you can safely fit into. Just don't be a jerk and dive bomb the corner. Alright, moving up through this backstretch is obvious, because it's the longest spot on the course, and you have so much momentum built up from firing out of turn 2. But remember what I said about how if everyone is moving up, then no one is moving up? That's the problem here. The pace is already so high that you'll need to put in a big dig just to make it worth your effort. So the best thing to do here is to let someone else do the digging for you. Let me show you what I mean. Take the outside line on turn 2, and then slot yourself into that outside lane. And from there, get ready to surf. Either a wheel that's coming by or one that's easily within reach. Remember, everyone is moving up here, so all you need to do is be patient. Once they've burned themselves out, you can either keep going on your own steam, reintegrate at the front, or wait for someone else to go over you and then jump on their wheel. Just be careful, because if you aren't a breakaway rider, you might just snag a really strong wheel and find yourself in the break against your better judgment. Keep this in mind. Your own matches should only be used if you're way back and completely desperate, or if you're making an attack. Hopefully the one that puts you or a teammate in position to win the race. Right now we're in the last 100 meters, where this race is usually won, whether it's from a bunch sprint or a small breakaway. But you need to be in the mix from at least 200 meters out just to be in the fight, otherwise you'll be sprinting for a mid-pack finish. But you need to know that this selection is often made with 2 or 3 laps to go, and I'll explain why. Remember that ramp before the start-finish line that I kept pointing out? That happens to be the best spot to lay down an attack, because so few riders are up to the challenge of pressing hard at that grade, so they either won't or can't chase these moves, especially after 30 minutes of racing. Even if the break has seemingly gone clear, if they've been hanging out for a while, even a weak attack from this spot is enough to blow right past them. Just never do it solo. I've tried so many times and it just simply doesn't work. For me, it's fun to flex on the bunch every so often, just to let them know that I exist, and maybe spook some of the more self-assured riders, but for this move to be successful, it needs to be made by at least 2 riders. However, more is better. There's one club that always has the numbers to make this move work week after week. They rally a train for their golden rider and just go for it. So if you have some friends or teammates, make a plan and go for it. If it fails, whatever, there's always next week. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this advice will help you in your own racing. Now I would love to show you the end of this race, but not only did my memory card run out, I narrowly escaped a gnarly crash. But thankfully, one of my teammates caught it on their camera, so let me show it to you. So that's me coming into frame on the left-hand side on the Colnago shorts. Now, the only thing going through my head is I have to move up, because I have a bad feeling that there's going to be a crash. And now we're rounding turn 1, and here we go. Just narrowly missed it.